she was talking about like, she just thought like, oh yeah, my friend Erin, she has beautiful photos. She's just gorgeous, and she just takes.
Erin has cheekbones. Every photo of her must look totally hot. I'm sure she just like walks out there, poses, pops one. And then Erin came to visit me in Dubai, and we were wheeling down the marina one night, and she wanted a photo because there's a gorgeous background, and she put down her little tripod and she wheeled over in front of the tripod, and she must have taken 60 shots and like posing and like, I mean, you guys think I'm not an embarrassable person. Erin makes me look like a blushing violet. I mean, she's just popping as many selfies as she wants, doesn't feel embarrassed at all, doesn't have a problem with it. And like 3 people stopped and were like, oh, I know you from Instagram. Can we take a selfie together? And it was really awesome. And I felt like I really learned a lesson about like, A, don't be embarrassed to take photos of yourself in public because everybody does it and nobody's really weird about it. And B, you're gonna have to take 60 shots to look as beautiful as Erin.
I mean, I think the secret there is the like accepting the fact that ultimately a selfie is like what makes it good is you're enjoying your own face. Like, why else take the photo that way? So the like barrier is I'm not allowed to like myself like this. You know, I'm not allowed to celebrate this enjoyment and this pleasure of myself in public or in this way or at this volume. Like we have these like social presets of like what's acceptable, social acceptable self-love looks like. So what I'm not embarrassed about, it's not so much the like creating in public, it's that I'm not embarrassed that I'm enjoying being me and looking at my own face in public.
Well, I feel like we've had our lesson for the night and we can all wrap up and go home now. I mean, we now know everything we need to know about social media and memoir writing. The biggest hurdle, the biggest hurdle is letting yourself.
One of the first things I said to Ashleigh was, oh my God, you're so gorgeous. And she was like, Jamie, it's a filter. And I was like, okay. And she taught me all about filters.
I'm not gonna lie, the fucking cheekbones are doing a lot of work. Like it helps to have bone structure that captures light in a certain way. Like there is an architecture of photography at play, and that, you know, like knowing where the light is coming from. But ultimately the 60 photos comes from, I like my face. I want to look at it in 60 different angles. And then I pick the vibe that works for me. So it's hard to take 60 photos if you're cringing the whole time that you're doing it.
And I think this goes into our writing as well, because if you're writing memoir, you have to believe that you are worthy of sharing what you're talking about with the world. You're worthy of what you care about with the world. If you're writing fiction, your words are worthy of attention, and it's okay to ask for that attention, which is kind of cool. And congratulations, Samuel, who just had a wonderful piece picked up by, Samuel, was it Bellevue Literary Review?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. And Samuel, how many places did you submit that fantastic piece about your family and your sister and mental health?
Well, I lost count, but I've been submitting it since 2007.
So sometimes you just got to keep knocking on the door and eventually it happens.
But it was Allison's great edits that helped me. I want to say that.
It was an amazing story to begin with. All I did was help you shape it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So. And congratulations, Ashleigh, who has sold a bajillion books by book standards. And we are going to talk about that and what all those numbers mean. I'd like to go ahead and say welcome everybody to the Writer's Bridge. And we talk a lot about author platform, but we call it the Writer's Bridge because a platform is a thing you stand up on and yell at people from. And a bridge is a two-way street between you and your readers, where you can talk to each other and help each other out, and how your readers know how to find you when they need your words. Ashleigh's book is out. There you can still buy it. You can still pre-order it. If you already own it, you might buy a couple to use as gifts. And then I'll also be teaching a webinar June 16th on writing powerful sentences, how we go beyond grammar. As always, in our time together, we cover a lot, and we will send you all a link to the recording tomorrow. We highly recommend that even if you are here live, that you plan to listen to this recording again, because there will be a lot of information. Our question of the week: Diana asks, how best to promote memoirs in the US that neither take place in the US nor are written by an American author? Diana's memoir deals with redefining personal identity in the context of immigration from Romania to Germany and Canada and intergenerational trauma under communism going from the 1950s until now. Ashleigh, you are a Canadian, and yet a lot of your book has happened in America. How did you promote in a country that your book was not based in?
Yeah, I'm going to mute all again, Allison, and then you just unmute you.
Fantastic.
I think the goal always is to figure out how your story relates to readers. Who's going to care about it? Who is going to care about your story? Like Erin Clark was just talking about, having the confidence to show up online or show up, physically or with your words, is believing that your words have meaning, have importance, are going to connect with someone else and support them or educate them or entertain them. So for every story, I don't think it matters so much where it took place or where you are from. You need to find the people who are going to connect with that. And Allison has some ideas too of how to really tie it in so you can let people know that they connect with it without them finding you on their own.
Exactly. And I would say tie your memoir to news that's happening in the country where you'd like to promote it. So if there is some kind of news thing happening about immigration or the immigrant experience, tie it to that. If there's something happening, like there's lots of communism anniversaries, the Berlin Wall came down, perestroika happened, the Soviet Union broke up. Tie it to those anniversaries, those meaningful events, and sell it where you are, and then try to sell the foreign rights as well. See if you can get it out there in German, see if you can get it out there in Romanian. But it really is up to you to find out what you can tie it to and then attach it to those things. So we are going to move on to talk about how to sell a lot of books. And Ashleigh, why don't you take us on your path? How did all of this get started for you?
Yeah. So a lot of you already know I was a figure skating coach and choreographer for 23 years before retiring 2 years ago, spring of 2019, to write my book. And I was like, that. So I sat down I wrote about 5 drafts within 5 months. I really do work well going hard and steady at something, because that's the way I've been trained year after year to really get things done in a periodized fashion, so that things will peak at competition time, then you have the time off. So within a year of starting my book for real, I'd started it as a screenplay a couple of years before, and I had a lot of journal entries and blog type posts. But when I sat down to write it, within a year, I had 2 agent offers. I signed with the agent who expressed the most enthusiasm. She offered me representation before she was even done the book. She was about halfway finished when she offered me rep. She did finish it. And then she was pretty certain she was going to sell it within a couple days. That should have been a red flag to me. But I had been slogging through querying for about 6 months, 8 months. And I thought, okay, maybe it's not too good to be true. Maybe this book that I think was good is good.
And Ashleigh, did you have any platform at all at that point? What did your platform consist of at that point?
I had 1,500 followers on Instagram. So I wouldn't say it was nothing, but it wasn't anything substantial or anything that would attract an agent. I did not have any bylines of relevance. I had been published in trade publications for skating and motherhood type magazines that were more like for a private organization. So it wasn't anything that I even put in my query letter. My agent was certain that people would fall over from just reading the first few pages like she did. She really thought she had the next Glennon Doyle on her hands, and that I was going to get her into the lucrative world of film options. And I was like, yes, please. So the thing was, because she loved the book so much, I think she didn't put a lot of thought into how to pitch this to editors. She just thought other people would love it too. Editors did like it. They liked the writing. They couldn't figure out exactly where the book fit. And this was some feedback I got from another agent too. She's like, there are 4 different books in here. Like you could write like a crunchy mama book. You could write a perfectionist and sport book. You could write a sexy book. And I was like, honestly, I'm all of these things every day. But she was like, we have more than one book here. I think that's what a lot of editors saw too. In the meantime, when my book had been on submission for a few months, I had started loosening up just a little bit with what I shared online, because while I was writing my book and while I was querying, I was terrified and hopeful constantly that the next thing I posted would go viral and would attract an agent or an editor, or the next thing I posted would be a huge black mark against me and no editor or agent would ever touch me. Every day, constantly. From every post on my static feed to every story I made, I was like, is it good? Is it good? Like I was quite tightly wound with all of that. I was underwhelmed with the experience with my agent, mostly because the communication was not great. And I like to move quickly and I like to know what else I can do. And she was like, we're going to sell this for big money. Just keep waiting. I'm mocking her voice. That's not even the way she speaks. I don't really know the way she speaks because I could not get her on the phone after she offered me representation, people. The only time I ever spoke to her was when she offered rep. And then every other time I asked for a phone call, she put me off and then sort of answered my questions via email, even though she didn't know exactly what they were. I got her, I think you're muted, Allison.
The mating call on Zoom. You're on mute. You're on mute. At what point did you realize this agent relationship is not working? I got to do something different.
2 weeks after I signed with her, but then both my in-laws got COVID and they were hospitalized for a long time and very sick for months. So I just sort of like let it ride. And then I got her to wrap up those submissions because I thought she was just going to go to 5 Canadian publishers, and she actually went to like 20 or 25 imprints across North America. And I was like, oh crap, okay, don't submit anymore. Just give me the list of the feedback from people. And then as soon as I got that, I cut off ties with her, which it ended up being 5 months. I had a 45-day wait before I could contact another agent. So I thought, you know what, for these next 45 days, I'm not going to stress about what I post. I'm just going to post stuff that's fun. I got 55,000 new followers in those 45 days. Because I just started posting like I would talk to friends, like there wasn't pressure on like trying to build a platform or trying to attract someone or fear about scaring someone off. At that point, I had emails prepped for the agents that I was going to send to, the agents who had expressed interest that past spring, and I couldn't send them. And I talked to Allison and I talked to Jane Friedman because she had helped me with my query letter. And I talked to some friends who published independently or hybrid. I just wanted to really understand the possibilities. When my following grew so quickly, the amount of time I spent on social media responding to people in comments and in DMs increased in a really big way. On average, I have 80 conversations in my direct messages a day. When the feed,
Ashleigh, did you already know your content buckets, or did that kind of grow as you were online, as you saw what got a good response?
I just posted stuff that was fun. And I looked back a couple months later and I thought I couldn't have primed my audience better for my memoir if I tried. I was just being me, sort of in the way that one agent had said, like, this is really weird. You're talking about cleaning the house. You're talking about crystals and astrology, and you're talking about hot sex and all of these different things. And it's like, that is just me. And that's why I wanted to encourage everybody with your different content buckets. If they're all really things that you genuinely love, it makes sense to have them together. So being more you really helps attract your audience.
Did you end up revising your manuscript based on that feedback you got from the editors?
No, I revised my manuscript once from feedback from an agent. Margaret Riley King, who is Danny Shapiro and Glennon Doyle's agent, was the first agent to request my manuscript like 2 weeks after I started querying. She later rejected it, but gave me a ton of feedback. And I cried for 2 months, and then I rewrote the whole thing and added 22,000 words of detail and dialogue. And that was the version that then got me the 2 agent offers a few months later.
So And I want to just add one more question from the chat. Linda asks, can you be fun in posts if you're writing fiction that's more on the serious side?
If you are fun in real life, you can be fun everywhere, I think. I think if, whatever your humor is, look at the texts you send to good friends. Listen to voice memos that you leave for them. I love the Marco Polo app. That's how I communicate with my best friends. You get to be on video. It is like the anti-filter. I use a nice filter on Instagram. Marco Polo will make you look worse than you will ever look in your life. So that's a nice thing for humility as well. And if you can be comfortable there, you can be comfortable anywhere. Think about the way that you speak and the way, just the way it comes out naturally. When I started making content like that, and honestly, I have batched content and I've tried to strategize about videos before, they never do well. The ones that I make spontaneously are the ones that connect with people.
And if you've been here before, you've heard us say it before. Nobody wants to be your customer. They want to be your friend. And so the more genuine you can be, the more your audience will love you and feel like they are invested in your success. So Ashleigh's got kind of a sexy topic, both literally and figuratively. She's writing about sex, she's writing about hot monogamy, she's writing about going to swingers clubs, but her topic is also sexy in the sense that it's a little bit exciting. It draws people in. It feels sort of, forbidden and exciting. What do you do if your topic is not sexy? Well, like we told Diana, you can tie it into current events because that sparks extra interest that helps bring people to you. You can also practice writing incredibly well, and social media is a really great place to practice writing incredibly well. Erin discovered her power to write a memoir because she was writing these incredible Instagram and Facebook essays. And finally, discover your niche audience. As it happens, Ashleigh has a fairly large niche audience, and yet there's still a really specific set of people, and they're not the same people who the rest of us are appealing to. Ashleigh, who's your niche and how did you find them?
Yeah, I'm going to share screen and go through this a little bit with you guys. I'm presenting from Canva for the first time too, if anybody wants to try this. We're good? How to sell some books?
We see how to sell some books.
Awesome. Okay. There we go. Okay, so connecting with your niche audience is finding people who care or should care about what you're talking about, okay? And the way that you help them, care is by sharing genuinely with them. I was terrified at all parts of the writing process, not really sure why I was doing it or if I should be telling the story. I shared that over and over and over with my audience on social media. Also very scared if I was going to find an agent, how I was going to get this published, all of those things. Okay, first way to find your audience, and I'm just going to talk about this briefly because we've talked about this a lot, but if you take one thing from Writer's Bridge, I want you to figure out who your comp accounts are. Comp accounts are very similar to comp authors or comp titles. The difference is you are paying attention, researching, looking through the comment threads every single day or as often as you can for those comp accounts to figure out what do these readers want that they're not getting here? Where does my unique experience, where does my unique personality fit in? Where can I fill in the gaps? Okay, Liz Gilbert is not giving people marriage advice because she didn't stay married. Glennon Doyle is not giving people, she's giving her readers advice on how to embrace their messy life. Some people would love to embrace their life, but have it not so messy. I told other people's kids what to do for a living for 2 decades, so I can get my kids to clean the house. There are things like this where I was just like, oh, this is stuff that people are looking for. If you want to stay married, if you want to work on your own perfectionism, but still have a level of order and productivity in your house, how do you make that happen? And those are things that I just genuinely am good at giving advice on. Okay, when I started really thinking, okay, what are they looking for? How can I be more me and then help people with that? How are people going to start like gravitating to me? Yes, they were. So when all of those people started coming, and since then, now I have, honestly, my TikTok following went up 5,000 people while I was sleeping last night because I posted a video that is doing really well. So I would say I have probably 220,000 followers over TikTok and Instagram right now. And that, like I said, it changes every day because I just keep posting the things. Now I'll tell Manny, I made a TikTok that I think is going to go viral because I figured out the kind of content that people love and that they're going to watch all the way through and that they're going to share, usually with their spouse or partner. Okay. So,
and Ashleigh, I want to pop in too, because the vast majority of us are not going to be able to gain that kind of following on social media. And some people don't enjoy doing social media. So when you use your comp authors to figure out what you have to say, start figuring out where your readers get their information. And that might not be social media. Ashleigh's readers are really active on social media. Not everybody's readers are. Is it better to reach them by writing an article or an essay and placing it in a literary magazine or a large newspaper? Is it better for you to start maintaining a mailing list to stay in touch with the people who've expressed interest in your book and build their interest in your writing? Is it worth it to go, hey, I'm a member of a mega church. I'm going to start showing up to all the study groups on Wednesday nights and, finding out what people want to know. And I will leverage my personal connections in that way. There is no, I will just sit here and it'll sell. Not even for big 5 published books, not even for people with giant social media followings. You're going to have to hustle. And I say that with love in my heart, but everyone has to hustle now more than they had to hustle 5 years ago, a lot more than they had to hustle 10 years ago, and way more than anybody had to hustle during the time our idea of what an author's life was like had calcified, which was in like the 1930s and the 1940s, and magazines were paying $1 a word and you could make a living writing for Vanity Fair. That is no longer the case. You're gonna have to hustle. Over to you, Ashleigh.
Absolutely. And figuring out a way that it is enjoyable for you has to be part of the equation. Answering direct messages from men and women who are having trouble in intimacy or trouble in their relationship or are really struggling with parenting, that's my jam. I am a coach. So I love that. If for you, it's like looking on like fertility, fertility journey forums and giving support, we have to figure out what we have of value to give people. Until we identify what we have of value, we're not going to be able to sell what we're giving to other people because we haven't even figured out if it's worth that price, whether it's their time or whether it's their money. So I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on this book launch once I decided that I was going to publish independently, because that's the decision I came to when I decided, listen, I don't really want an agent. And I know so much about my audience right now. I think it would probably take me a couple years to get an agent and an editor and a publisher and a publicist up to speed on what I already know about my audience. And still, I don't think they would be able to connect with them the way that I am every day. Allison, were you going to add something there?
What did you say in your handwritten notes to those bookstores?
Yeah. Okay. So here are a couple of things. These are things on the left here, something that took a lot of time, which is 2 years. I've been talking to my audience about the importance of pre-ordering and ordering from independent bookstores since before I started writing my book. The way I would do that is every time a writer who I liked was releasing a new book, I would get on my Instagram stories and say, hey, I just heard so-and-so is releasing a new book. I'm pre-ordering. Do you know why? Because this is why pre-orders are important for authors. They help publishers determine how much they're going to spend for promotion. They help bookstores determine what books they're going to stock in store. And all pre-orders count for first week sales, giving a writer their best chance to make a bestseller list. I'm like a broken record. I have told my audience that probably 500 times in the past 2 years. But even new audience members, when they first started following me, one of their first questions for me in January and February was, is your book available for pre-order yet? They already understood that that was the way you support someone you like. So that took a lot of time. Now, something that took a lot of money was I sent ARC's handwritten notes to indie bookstores. I published through Ingram, securing a distributor when publishing independently. So here, Jamie, I'll talk about that right now too. I published through IngramSpark. It is the biggest and one of the easiest ways to publish independently. They are connected with almost 40,000 bookstores and libraries across the US. Once your book is uploaded to IngramSpark and you approve the digital proof, it automatically shows up on different retailer sites at different times. It was up on Amazon within 24 or 48 hours, Barnes and Noble the next day. My local bookstore, they actually had to add it manually because it took a couple weeks to come up. So as far as distribution, digital ARCs, Nora, are just like an ebook, either a PDF or an EPUB or a MOBI that you would email to people, to reviewers, or to people who want to read it. I did not assume that anybody would give a crap about my book. So I sent paperbacks to probably about 50 independent bookstores, paperback ARCs. Inside, I had a cute little QR code sticker with the audiobook link. So anybody who was in that bookstore, any staff who wanted to pick that up, bookstores get a ton of ARCs, advanced reader copies. Sometimes they're called galleys, usually from publishers. It's not a common thing for an independently published author to send ARCs out. I got a lot of advice from Jane Friedman, and she uses my query letter in her query letter course. Like Jane's like, we have a saleable story here. You know, we couldn't quite figure out how to do it with like a big 5 publisher, but she was like, you are going to have to look even more professional than some big 5 ARCs that are coming through for anybody to give you any attention.
Jamie asks, how do you get a distributor as an independent publisher? It is really hard to get a distributor if you are truly independently publishing and you're not with a reputable hybrid who already has a distributor. But if you list with Ingram, with them to distribute your book, and you list with Amazon, and you're going to want to list with 2 separate barcodes on there, 2 separate ISBNs, because your neighborhood bookstore will not order a book that has an Amazon ISBN on it. But that gives you almost the reach of a distributor. And Ashleigh, what was your experience when you published with Ingram, because you sold so many books?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually used the same ISBN for Ingram and Amazon. I used it on Ingram first and then uploaded it to Amazon. So it is my ISBN that I bought that is under MW Books, which is my imprint. I sent my books to US and Canadian bookstores, but my audience, my social media audience is from all over the world, and they already knew why it was important to order from independent bookstores. So people ordered from their independent bookstores in the UK, in Denmark, in Booktopia is an online retailer in Australia. They handled tons of my pre-orders because I have a large Australian audience. The thing is, bookstores will buy your book for their customers who are pre-ordering it if you have a reasonable discount for them, which you need to set it at 55% through Ingram. My bookstore then gets a 46% discount, and you have to make it returnable because bookstores do not want to hang on to a book that then doesn't sell. So those are the things I did. It cut my profit by a lot, but it made me look more professional to bookstores. Also, I think I had about 3,000 print pre-orders a couple weeks before my book came out, and IngramSpark called me and said, your title is exploding. We are going to push it into our wholesale distribution pipeline and have our sales reps pitch it to bookstores. Every Friday, there's a sales meeting where Ingram sales reps talk to representatives, buyers from bookstores, and they have a hot new title section, and they put my book in there. I didn't even know that was a possibility. And then a lot of bookstores started ordering it. That handwritten note that I sent to indie bookstores, I said, dear so-and-so, I looked to find the names of the owners, okay? And I said, dear Chuck and Bill, thank you so much for listing Swing on your site. People, they didn't list my book on their site. It automatically populated from Ingram, but I wanted to thank them for something anyway. Okay, so I said, thank you for listing Swing on your site. I have been educating my social media audience, 180K plus, because that's about what I had then, about the importance of pre-orders and ordering from independent bookstores. That's all. So just that, so far, I think I'm the staff pick at one store. I didn't even know what would happen with this. I just wanted to send it out. So that's the thing with these two options. This definitely led to more sales than this. So time over money here definitely helped. Are we talking about reviews? One of
basically,
chat.
There are people who advertise review services, but if they are posting to Amazon and Goodreads, it's against the terms of services on both of those platforms to pay for reviews. And if they catch you, they'll take your reviews down and they may bump you off the platform. Samuel asks, what's the difference between Ingram and a vanity press? And Yolande, I don't know if Book Sirens specifically is legit or not, but anyone saying that they will sell you Amazon reviews is violating Amazon's terms of service, even if they are delivering the product that they say they're delivering it in exchange for your money. Samuel, Ingram is not a vanity press because Ingram doesn't charge you money. You pay a $50 setup fee, or if you look at the Alliance of Independent Authors, they usually have a code where you can get the setup for free. And then Ingram is print on demand. So a bookstore can order your book and they pay Ingram and Ingram pays you. Or if you want to sell books at a conference or at a workshop, you can order a box from Ingram and you buy them and then you resell them at whatever price you want to resell them at. A vanity press is where you pay a substantial sum of money to someone who doesn't actually do a very good job on your book and insists that you buy a lot of books for them. Yeah.
I did not work with a publicist. I did it myself. I did hire out some of the ad stuff, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then when I started doing it myself, I got much better results. Okay, so little free libraries, they're lending libraries. Okay, difference between vanity and hybrid. Now, Allison.
Okay, so here's the brief diversion into hybrid presses.
Yeah.
No, what a hybrid press tells you, no matter how they phrase it, no matter how much they tell you it's your contribution to the total cost of publishing your book and their contribution, that is a bullshit lie. What they are selling you is a suite of publishing services. They make their profit out of your check. There are some very good hybrid presses who deliver an excellent suite of services, who save you the trouble of doing all the cover research and finding a good cover designer and finding a good interior designer and figuring out how it all works. And it's expensive, but if you are not someone who wants to learn all this stuff, it can be very useful. But they make their profit out of your check every single time. The difference between a vanity and a hybrid is that a hybrid has some level of screening. They won't publish something that is completely incoherent or totally crap. They will provide legitimate editing services that you will pay for. A vanity will also say, you must also promise that you are going to buy 1,000 books, which will then sit in your garage because they didn't give you a very good cover and they haven't done it correctly. If you have anything about a hybrid press, you must speak to people who have already published with that press and ideally find them yourself so that you can find if anybody has had a crummy experience with them. She Writes is generally good and has positive reviews. And I've also heard good things about a couple of others who are not at the top of my head. That is my polemic. Ashleigh, back to you.
One of the things I wanted to do was, okay, I had a ton of beta or early readers, like 425 back when I was still querying agents. I knew that when people read my book, they then told friends about it. So one of my initiatives was to send out a ton of, well, actually I was just planning to do 25 copies to little free libraries around me or the Philadelphia area. I put a little note on Facebook asking people if anybody was actually using little free libraries in pandemic, or if everybody was like, don't touch a book anybody else has touched. I got a huge response saying, yes, my lending library at the end of my street has been busier than ever in pandemic. And when so many people responded telling me that not only, yes, they knew what little free libraries were, but they actually loved them, I thought, oh, okay, I could actually do something bigger here. So then I offered people, I said, who would like to receive a box of 25 of my books and put them in little free libraries around you, and I will give you $100. 50 people replied, and half of them didn't want money. They just wanted to help because I had been sharing for a long time about the book process. So those got distributed all around, mostly the US, some in Canada, some in Italy, which the army paid for it to go to Italy. But
and
anyway,
Ashleigh, how much money did you end up spending on purchasing those books, shipping them out, and paying the people who wanted to be paid? And how many stacks of books did you have in your house?
Okay, they all drop shipped, so I didn't have any books in my house. But I spent way too much money because at first I thought I was just going to send out like 25, and I did it on lulu.com, where I was paying about $7 a copy. I spent $10,000 on this, Allison, but if I was helping other writers do it, they could do it for half of that to send out 1,000 copies. Because if you just duplicate your title through Ingram, you could get it probably for like $3.50 a book rather than the $7 plus shipping that I was doing. So it was a lot. Because I already had that process going, and I did a very cute, super secret, advanced reader copy, little free library edition cover, I just kept going. I just kept going with that. Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I have time and money to invest. One of my options when I came from skating into writing was maybe I should just go get an MFA so that I have a writing community. I spent a lot of money promoting my book, but I spent less than I would for an MFA. And look, I have a bunch of friends, you're here. So I looked at this as a business investment, and I had just come from running my own business for 20 years.
Do you know how much you've spent so far?
I have spent probably $80,000, but you do not need to spend that. A lot of that was a waste of money, which I'm going to talk about here.
And as Ashleigh segues, I will also let you guys know that I will be promoting my own book. I am not planning on spending anywhere near $80,000. I am planning on spending $2,000 or $3,000 and hustling my ass off for publicity. The difference between marketing and publicity is that publicity you earn because you're interesting, and marketing you pay for like an advertisement. And so if you can tie your book in or yourself in to a current event, to another author who's having a big launch, to, hey, I'm a hometown girl, so you should review me in the hometown newspaper. Erin is a pole sport champion, and so every time she wins a pole sport championship, that is another opportunity for her to talk on a podcast and talk up her book, get on TV and talk about her book, get on the radio, talk about her book. Every chance you get to hustle, 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 if you throw in the time, you don't have to spend nearly as much money, but it's very difficult to do if you don't have the time. Sarah, my book comes out in September. Thank you. And over to you, Ashleigh.
Yeah, and I had the question, how many books will I need to sell to recoup that investment? If I was planning to just recoup that investment through book sales, I would need probably 25,000 books. I sold over 5,000 in the first week. I mean, and sales are continuing, but I didn't look at it as like tit for tat, the money I spend promoting this book is going to be, it has to come back just through book sales. I thought of this, if it comes back through book sales within the next year, I would say that is a huge, huge win. I also do coaching with Allison. Most of what we do is free because we are so busy. If we had more time to figure out how to build out our coaching services, maybe we wouldn't be as busy and we would make more money. But we also love offering this, as off the cuff, like as we learn it.
And yes. I suspect that Ashleigh will be able to leverage a lot of this experience into paid coaching if authors end up working with her. I know that's something she's considering doing in the future. I am really hoping that my book will help position me more as a keynote speaker, as somebody who universities will bring to have me come in. I'm looking at it as a resume builder rather than I want to sell a bajillion copies. And I also want to say too, you may have heard this statistic before, but the average book of all books, traditional, self, everything, sells fewer than 2,000 copies over the entire lifetime of the book. And so think about how many books sell zero to make up for Stephen King and Nora Roberts. And I say that not to be depressing, but to say, if you sell 500 books, that's a freaking achievement. If you sell 1,000 books, that is a big achievement. If you sell 2,000 books, you are already doing better than about 90% of the other authors out there. The average self-published book sells under 100 copies. So know that these numbers are not as giant as we think. Like we hear that Stephen King sells 1 million books and it sounds amazing, but Ashleigh, you have currently joined BookScan, and I know I may be diverting you from your path right now, but what kind of numbers are you actually seeing in terms of how many books it takes for people to get on the New York Times bestseller list? And tell us what BookScan is.
All right, I am the snoopiest because I love doing research and I love actually seeing numbers. Even as a figure skating choreographer, I choreographed on Excel spreadsheets, okay? Numbers are my jam, the snoopiest, exactly. So I was able to buy a subscription to NPD BookScan.
Sarah heard that as book scam. No, BookScan with an N.
Let me just tell you, so I can see sales numbers for any book that was published in any way, I think since 2003, but by the week. So I've been looking at when books hit bestseller lists, how many copies they actually moved, and all of those things. I published my nonfiction book in paperback. To make the New York Times bestseller list in paperback, you need 3,000 copies sold in 1 week. It's velocity of sales. A lot of people say, you need in between 5,000 and 10,000 copies to hit New York Times. That's not what has happened in the past year. The thing is, New York Times is a curated list, so is Wall Street Journal. So I think I would have to probably double that in 1 week in order to even get consideration. Even though I tried to do it in a really professional way, it is obvious that I'm independently published. Just because on BookScan, it has like Ingram, Lightning Source as the source of the book distribution.
And bear in mind too, and this goes back to Isidra's question from earlier, you can probably either funnel all your people to Amazon as hard as you can to show up high in the Amazon list, or you can funnel your people towards independent bookstores as hard as you can if you want to get on the traditional lists. It is very hard to get on the New York Times list with Amazon sales. They don't count Amazon sales, they count bookstore sales.
And Miriam, yeah, that's a good question because I have a big audience in Canada because I am Canadian. I've lived in the US for 19 years. My Canadian sales do not count towards New York Times. They do not count towards BookScan. If a Canadian author had a lot of sales in the US and they had those sales reported on BookScan, they absolutely could make New York Times. But it's just, you would have to have that many in that one country. And I have an international audience from my social media and from my work as a figure skater, because I really did have an international community of colleagues. Okay, so here is another time versus money thing. Huge time and huge money spent here. Okay. Yes, I've answered almost every comment and every direct message for a couple of years. And like I said, sometimes that's 80 a day. I mean, average is 80 a day.
How long do you spend on that, Ashleigh? How much time do you put in, and where do you fit it into your day?
I have, since I finished the book, I have considered figuring out who my audience is and what they need my full-time job. So I spend most of every day doing it. I also want to figure out, like here with the buying ads, I have spent a ton of time. I've spent 12 to 14 hours a day for the past 3 weeks analyzing my Amazon ranking, the number of books that are being printed through Ingram, the number of clicks on my website, and the amount of money and engagement I am getting through these things. Listen, this took a lot of money and it didn't give me a lot of returns, but I'm going to tell you, for buying ads, we have to think about what are people doing on that app to begin with. I spent a ton of money on Facebook ads, like a ton, that led me to almost no sales. People who come to my website through a TikTok video of mine that they saw for free, or a Snapchat ad, or a Pinterest ad, are, at this point, they're about 50 times more likely to hit a purchase button on my website than somebody who comes through a highly targeted and expensive Facebook ad. I think I know why. People who come from TikTok have probably, what happens on TikTok is one of my videos will go up on their For You page and they'll be like, that's interesting. They go to my profile, they watch some of my other videos. By the time they click on that link in bio to go to my website, they feel like they kind of know me. They've heard a little sex advice. They've heard how I get my kids to clean the kitchen floor and actually make it look clean. They're like, oh, okay. It's like they're familiar with me. Then when they go to my page and it's like, here's a little more about me, want to buy my book, very likely to hit yes. I target female identifying people between the age of 25 and 55 with all of my ads. I don't put any other interests or anything. What I found that performs the best is just the gender and age of my target audience. When they come over, if a 40-year-old woman is on Snapchat or Pinterest, she's looking for something. But she doesn't know what it is. She doesn't know what it is. She's looking for something to catch her eye or catch her attention. Is it going to be an interesting recipe? Is it going to be a cool horoscope thing? Oh, look, it's a book that maybe can fix my marriage. Okay, if a 40-year-old woman is on Facebook, she's probably wishing somebody a happy birthday. She's probably checking her neighborhood group. She's probably doing this. She's probably doing that. And she's commenting on someone's cat photo. Okay, so we need to look at, like, what are people doing on there? If you are going to get their attention and try to bring them off of that platform, what is it going to be effective? What do you need to do? These are the things that have sold me the most books, besides just hand selling my book in my direct messages for like 2 years. And one of the ways I did that was, if anybody came into my DMs over the past 2 years in crisis, like, oh, I saw your before you get a divorce video. I had just signed divorce papers, but I just put them to the side of my desk. What else can you give me for help? I would just email them my book. I gave out so many free copies of my book because I knew from my experience with beta readers that once people read it, they wanted more from me. Like, either they started following me, they want to read my next book, or they want to tell friends about it. So those are the things I did. Hiring a publicist. So we have talked about that a bit. I didn't hire a publicist because I wanted to do things that required no gatekeepers. I didn't want to get a no from Good Morning America and a no here and a no there. I wanted to figure out, what can people do if they have a ton of time they're willing to invest, or even if they have a ton of money. And I could help people spend their money much better than I did, because I wanted to kind of throw it in all directions and see what works, what doesn't, like what is the potential out there. Stacey, I've had book clubs reach out to me because I had so many beta readers who then wanted to be the person who said, my friend Ashleigh wrote a book and we should read it in our book club. Even if they've never met me in real life, we've exchanged direct messages enough times that they really feel like we are friends. Publicists really can. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Stephanie. My TikTok ads, meh. My free TikTok videos that do well are what is selling me more books than anything else.
We had an episode a couple of episodes ago, and tomorrow in the email that has the link to this episode, you'll also get a link to all of our previous episodes, and Ashleigh has beautiful documentation about what is where. But we talked about publicists, and the gist is you're going to have to pay low 4 figures per month for a minimum of 3 to 6 months. And they may do a great job for you or they may not, and you won't know until you've hired them and paid them. What some people really liked about their publicist was it got them published in magazines faster. It got them in the door to TV or radio. If you are not already comfortable with writing your own press releases, it would be worth at least hiring somebody to do your press releases and your basic PR information that you can send out to the press yourself, because most of what you're paying the publicist for is connections. So if they have connections that are good for you, like you really want to get onto Good Morning America, you're going to need a publicist to do that. If they can't get you into places that you can't get yourself, then it's not as worth it as well. Yolande says, Ashleigh talks about how she shared what makes her happy on social media and found success. How does that apply to politics or other big issues we feel passionate about, but may turn off your audience? It is as important to drive away the people who are not your readers as it is to keep the ones who are your readers.
Yep. And a couple questions here too. Instagram ads performed very poorly for me as well. Instagram and Facebook, I have to tell you, drove probably 10,000 people to my website every day. Almost none of them clicked on a buy button to buy my book. So, I mean, it's okay for brand awareness, but I didn't want to spend $1,000 a day on brand awareness. I wanted it to convert to sales, even though I knew I was going to spend more money in ads each day that I would actually make back in sales. I wanted it to generate some sales. I think on Instagram, people have their regular accounts they're going to, their regular friends. If someone is on Snapchat, they're just browsing, like sort of like mindlessly scrolling. Or if someone is on Pinterest, they are looking for something to buy or a recipe to download. They're like, give me something that makes my life better or easier, or surprise, can maybe help me in my marriage. Because, oh, damn, yeah, I'm looking for that other casserole recipe because really, I'm not really happy with this dude right here.
So what we've hit for you guys so far is how Ashleigh prepared, how she spent a lot of time educating her audience, letting them know why pre-orders mattered, and how much she ended up hustling. Yolande has asked another fantastic question about how do we deal with fear and imposter syndrome as we do this. And we're going to talk about that as soon as we come back from breakout rooms. Ashleigh.
Just want to say thank you, Allison. This has been great so far.
You are so welcome. I am so glad you're enjoying it. Hi, Denise. You've been here before, right? We've had you at a couple of meetings.
No, first time.
First time. Well, welcome. How'd you hear about it?
Through Facebook.
Fantastic. Well, I am so glad to have you. What are you writing?
I'm working on historical fiction. So
excellent.
Loosely based on a family story, but went much further beyond that. So
what's your time period?
I'm in Cuba in the 1930s through 1960.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. If you get a chance, there's a woman named Judy, is it Judy Rabenor? It's not Judy Rabenor. It's Judy Bolton Fassman. But Judy Bolton, I'll try and introduce you to on Facebook. But Judy's mother emigrated out of Cuba like right before Castro took over, and she's writing a memoir version of it. But you might like to know her because I bet that she has like details you might like to know, and I bet you know stuff that she'd like to know.
Yeah, that would be great. I have my my Facebook account deactivated for a little bit. I've been trying to spend more time writing, but I can share my email address with you.
Dynamite, yeah, and I'll pass you on to Judy because her book's really interesting.
Awesome.
And yeah, and I can't wait to hear more about your book. That sounds fantastic. Denise is writing historical fiction that happens in 1930s Cuba, which I think sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are you doing so far as like moving forward? Like, are you at the promoting stage? Are you at the still writing stage? Where are you?
Still writing stage. As I'm sure everybody here knows, sometimes it's hard when you're raising a family and kids and trying to get the kind of momentum with your writing that you're hoping to. And so this has been a huge heart project, and little by little, small steps. But I'm well into a second full draft of the novel, and I have a presence on Facebook. Like I said, on hiatus for now, so I can spend more time writing, but also on Twitter. So you can find me there at DB Writer.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Fantastic. DD Writer.
DB Writer, yeah.
Got it. Got it. That's
So,
really cool. I'm finding too that like Facebook is not necessarily my most effective place to connect with people. Facebook groups are great. Facebook as a whole, I think it's become kind of like a dead zone. I think people mostly just go on there to talk to their specific friends. But I'm really enjoying, I'm in a bunch of groups and I'm really enjoying that. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's great. And they are fantastic. So I'm kind of missing the, the social time and the camaraderie, but we also have to actually do the writing and the work. So.
Exactly. Something's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
So Allison, how often do you interact with the Facebook groups?
Steve, I do social media for between an hour and 2 hours every single day. I usually do it for about an hour before I get out of bed because I enjoy lying there and like catching up with how yesterday went because I'm in Dubai. So I'm 8 hours ahead of Eastern time. So I catch up with yesterday's social media in the morning. And then I do like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there throughout the rest of the day as I'm waiting, when I need a break. I am definitely a toilet Twitterer. And I like it though. Like I genuinely enjoy doing it. And in the groups that I'm in, I take part in a lot of discussions where like, oh, somebody needs advice or, oh, I need advice. Who can give me advice and talk about writing, talk about books. And I don't really have friends in real life. So like, that's kind of like my social life. They say my favorite poem starts out, you want a social life and friends, a passionate love life, and as well to work hard every day. Well, what is true is of these three, you may have two. And I have a great marriage that I work really hard on, and I really love my work, and I don't really have a social life, and I'm okay with it. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Yeah, it does. The groups that you belong to, are they mostly related to the content of your writing?
No, they're mostly actually related to being a writer. I'm in some groups for editors. I'm in some groups for writers. I'm in a whole bunch of groups for lady writers. But Steve, are you a member of the Business of Being a Writer on Facebook?
No.
Because that would be a good one to join. It's run by Jane Friedman, who's totally legit. So the group is not full of advertising, and it's a place where you can get genuine publishing information. And I think you might enjoy that particular one because it's a fun one to be in. And then there you can ask people like, what other groups are you in that you like?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Steve, I'm dropping that in the chat for you right now, that Facebook group, The Business of Being a Writer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just hit close on the breakout rooms, so everybody's coming on back. Fear is a thing, and fear is a thing that happens to a lot of us. And Ashleigh and I look competent, and we've spent a lot of time learning how to be competent and practicing being competent, but we also get fearfulness. Ashleigh, what's your biggest worry when you're publicizing your book or when you're putting yourself out there?
My biggest worry is how my family will react because they're very supportive in a performative way, but they are not actually supportive in a real way, which is something I've been dealing with in waves and waves in a really real way since my book came out 2 weeks ago. So not all fears are unfounded, but are we going to let them stop us? This is one of the reasons I spend hours a day in my DMs, because I get probably 25% of my audience is men. 50% of my DMs are for men who are trying desperately to connect better in their marriage. And they can see like, okay, I really screwed this up, or I know I've been shut down like this, or I want to ask for this, but I don't know how to ask for what I want. And my videos will give them a little indication, oh, maybe I can go at it from that angle. And they'll come in like to say, my partner just had a baby and I know she doesn't feel good about her body, but what do you think about me saying this? And that's why I spend so much time engaging with my audience, because they remind me, oh yeah, I'm not just trying to be the center of attention here. I'm not just trying to do something that's self-serving. I really have figured out where my experience and talents meets with people's real needs.
Yeah. The thing I am most afraid of is that I will fail, and what failure actually is looks kind of nebulous to me. But I'm afraid that I'm going to put my book out there and people are going to go, oh, this sucks. This is basically like reheated writing advice from everybody else, and nothing you have to say is of value or of interest. So that's what I'm afraid of. I want to say that our top tips for you guys, if you take nothing else away, your number one thing to do is your mailing list or maintaining connections with people. Sakib, I'm putting you in the waiting room because you keep unmuting. Your public speaking, teaching, any way that you connect with people in a live way, and interacting on social media, not advertising your book, but interacting, providing value to your audience, providing value to your fellow writers. We end up looking competent, but feeling disorganized. And our next Writers Bridge meeting is going to be, how the heck do you get all this stuff done? How do you do it? We're going to talk about how being organized and being productive are not the same thing. We're going to talk about what specific tips and tricks we use to make more time in the day, and how we decide what are we going to do a shitty job on so that we can do a better job on the thing we care about more. Because no matter what, people, you are not going to be able to do a great job on everything, and you will save yourself a lot of hassle and aggravation and sadness if you decide in advance, this is what I care the most about being good at, and I'm going to let the other stuff slide. It's better to choose what you're going to let slide than it is to have it surprise you and feel crappy about it. Ashleigh, take us away with how we are going to sell our amazing books.
First, you are going to actually believe that you have something of value, because you do. You do, you do. And if you can't figure out what that is, start reading what your comp authors are offering, and see you will see in 5 minutes in the comments what support people need that they're not getting. Because it doesn't matter if they've sold 1 million or 12 million books, they're not offering every reader everything they need. That's why each one of us has a story, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, or it's prescriptive nonfiction. We are called to write because we know that we can make meaning of our experiences and offer it to other people. So
yeah, the great gift of writing, whether that's fiction or nonfiction, is letting other people know you're not the only one who felt this way. And you got to love your own words, and you got to love your own face to get it out there in the world. Thank you all so much. Please feel free to unmute yourselves for a lovely goodbye. And we so appreciate you honoring us with your time and attention, and we'll see you in 2 more weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Everybody.
Thank you as always.
Congratulations, your article.